Okay, it's 1:30 and I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We are here today to consider application number 2022-001. The applicant is Pradeep Properties LLC. The request is a conditional use permit for a reception facility. The address of the applicant, the PIN, is 13202 Hebron Road, Hebron, Illinois. It's part of PIN number 03-07-200-002. The property consists of approximately 6.5656 acres and is located on the north side of Hebron Road, roughly 1,300 feet east of Nichols Road in Hebron Township. The publisher's certificate of publication from a newspaper is dated May 13th, 2023, and thereby meets ordinance requirements. The affidavit of posting was signed and the date posted was May 15, 2023, and thereby meets ordinance requirements. The affidavit of mailing was signed and the date mailed was May 11th, 2023, and thereby meets ordinance requirements. The survey has been checked against the petition, legal notice, and publication in the newspaper, and all three match. The filing fee's been paid. The endangered species consultation was not required for this petition, and the McHenry County Soil and Water Conservation District report has been received. The petitioner is here, correct? Would you like to come up to the table here where you'll be giving testimony? I'd like the board to introduce themselves and the name of their township in which they reside, starting on my left. Mr. Cozen.
Yes. Robert Cozen, Algonquin Township.
Donald Smolinski, Grafton Township.
Charlie Eldridge, Richmond Township.
Linnea Kustra, Alden Township.
Dickie Gardner, Nanda Township.
Kurt Schnabel, Riley Township.
So today, anybody who will be giving testimony, whether you want to say something, ask a question, if you're going to partake in this hearing at all, I need to swear you in, so I ask you to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, for those who are not familiar with our proceedings, the way this works is the petitioner presents their evidence to the board, what they're trying to do, and then the board will have the opportunity to ask them questions, as well as the staff, and then any member of the public who would like to ask them questions can do so. When you do that, you need to come up to this microphone on my right, identify yourself and where you reside, your street address, and then you can ask questions of their testimony. When that is completed, then we will hear the testimony from the staff, a summary of their report, and when everything else is done, then you'll have an opportunity to give a comment, any member of the public who wants to give comments, whether you're for or against the petition and why, then that will happen at the end after all the other testimony has been given. So at this time, I would recognize the petitioner. Please introduce yourself, and if you have representation, whoever's going to be speaking, and explain to us what you want to do here.
Sure. My name is Jenny Capel. I'm with Larson Engineering. I am the civil engineer on this project. I'm representing Anita and Larry Miller, who are the property owners at this site. And then did you say you wanted me to talk through what the project was?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, I mean, you sort of touched on it already. It's, they are essentially requesting a conditional use permit for a reception facility. It's on that north or the southwest corner of their property. And it's north of the Hebron Road. It's about a 6.57 acre area that they would be using for this event venue. And I think let's see here if there's anything else. The event space will be used for weddings, receptions, corporate events, meetings, conferences, and dances, and the like. It is anticipated that the most high volume events will be booked on weekends and in the evenings. However, the event venue is planned to be available 365 days per year for any event need. It is anticipated that a maximum number of people on site would be 260.
We have standards in our ordinance that need to be addressed. I know you addressed some of those in the narrative because you were the petitioner just incorporate, you know, what your answers were, put that on the record, or somehow?
Sure. I mean, I have these ones in front of me, the approval standards for conditional use. Looks like there was 8 items on here. So if you want me to read through them, I guess number 1, please describe how the conditional use meets all applicable standards of UDO 16.56 and 16.60. Our response was there are no applicable standards for reception facility uses in UDO 16.56. The facility and site will be designed to fully comply with the site development standards of UDO 16.60, including setbacks, parking, lighting, and landscaping. Number 2, is the conditional use compatible with the existing or planned future development of the area? Our response was, although the surrounding area is primarily agriculture, the site is located just to the west of the downtown area of Hebron and will serve the community. The architectural style of the project will blend with the agricultural setting. I believe the event venue is meant to be a barn that's going to be reconstructed. Number 3, is the conditional use detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare of the area? Our response was no, the project will be designed to fully comply with applicable codes. The use as a reception facility will not involve any activities that would endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare of the area. Number 4, will the conditional use be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the area? Our response, no, the project will be designed to fully comply with applicable setbacks and landscape codes. The use as a reception facility will not interfere with the use or enjoyment of the adjacent properties. Number 5, will the conditional use substantially diminish and impair property value in the area? Our response was no, the use as a reception facility will not involve any activities which would diminish or impair adjacent property values. Number 6, are any adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities provided? Our response was yes, the project will include installation of adequate on-site water and septic systems, as well as stormwater management. The electrical and gas services are adequate to serve the project. The adjacent roadway, Hebron Road, is adequate to serve the passenger vehicles and limited delivery vehicles anticipated for the use. Number 7, has conditional use operation been designed to provide ingress and egress to minimize traffic congestion and hazard on the public streets? Our response, yes. The project will include installation of 2 commercial driveways to serve the reception venue. These will be adequate for the anticipated traffic to access the site. And finally, number 8, will the conditional use conform to the applicable standards of the underlying zoning district? And our response was yes, the project will generally conform to the applicable standards of the agricultural zoning district.
Okay, any questions? Starting on my left, Mr. Coulson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you give us a little more background on the applicant in terms of the business experience for this venue, et cetera?
Sure. What I know of is that they have a farm on their site, right, that you've been operating for how long?
We're entering our
You
ninth year
need
next
to
month.
You need to
identify
identify
yourself.
yourself.
Oh, okay.
My apologies.
You'll need to speak yourself then,
And into the microphone.
and into
please.
the microphone. Identify yourself and then speak. Maybe best if you answer the questions versus the engineer.
My name is Anita Miller, property owner. Next month, we are entering into our 9th year of farming. We have several other businesses and do have a business background in McHenry County between a processing business that we have and rental properties that we have. Our farm has evolved over the last 8 years from when we moved in, it was just planting certain crops, but we have evolved into having educational tours, educational classes. And part of this event space is going to be to have more space for those things because the space we have now is not adequate, and we've had to minimize classes for children to come in to learn about agriculture due to our space. We have ran plenty of payrolls and employees and successfully, and have all of the factors in place of like from accounting to legal to HR and any thing that I think could come up, we have already dealt with our other businesses and have dealt with successfully.
Well, let me follow up a little more specifically. Do any of your other business activities involve 260 or more guests at any one time?
Our current business at the farm, we have entertained more than that. Last year, the McHenry County Farm Stroll, our farm alone had over 1,000 people at it at that day. We had adequate staff for our store, for those who were touring our farm. So I would say, and with the tours that we have, maybe not up to 260 in one day on a consistent basis, but we have had more than 100 people at our farm on many given days. And like I mentioned, the farm show, which happens every year, the last several years, we've had way over 260 people on the farm that day and have handled it adequately, I think, I hope.
There's a reference in the narrative to a barn restoration.
There,
Can you expand on that?
I surely can. There was an old dairy barn in Johnsburg that sat behind the Home Depot there that we heard was going to be torn down, and that broke our hearts. So we petitioned the owners to not just tear this old dairy barn down, to please let us come in to take it down piece by piece, to be able to hopefully reconstruct it into this barn project to help preserve the history of that barn. The King family was the family that owned it.
Have you had any prior experience of restoring a building of that type and size?
I would say yes, because we have had several rental properties that are rather large that we had to restore. One of them is the old Alden Schoolhouse on 173. That is one of our properties that we had to go in because it fell to disrepair under the previous owner. And to keep a lot of the historical value, maybe not value is the right word, but just to have the history stay with it, that we carefully went in to restore it. Plus, we, maybe not to the same size, but we have done many projects with several of our rental houses to bring them up to code, to make them livable when they were prior not.
I'd like to direct the question to the engineer. You introduce yourself as Jenny Keppel.
Yes.
Are you the author or the person who initialed the drawings, the site plan of C1.0?
Yes, I'm the drawn by JBK. That's me.
Using that drawing, can you just help with the calculation of the fall or the slope of the property from Hebron Road north?
Well, what are you looking for exactly?
Well, exactly, you posted the elevation of the property in the primary replacement area is about 922, and that it leaves the property in the northeast corner at 912.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so, I mean, so we have some lines that you can see there. The dashed lines are the topography lines. Each foot is represented by a dashed line. So yes, in the, I believe, I can't quite read here, but I believe in the southwest corner, it should be called out. Oh, you can kind of see it above the primary and replacement area for septic in the lower left there. There's the 922. That's representing, that is essentially the high point of the site based on the county's existing GIS data that they have, and then we've sort of mapped it out here. So that is the, like I said, the high point of the site, and then as you can see, those numbers essentially go down to 921, 920, 919, and then stretch all the way back out to, I think that number you said, which was 912. That's the existing topography. We haven't designed the new grading yet.
So what would be the fall, if you will, across that elevation?
I guess I'm not sure what your question
The
is.
degree of slope?
Let's see. Well, the property, I guess, I don't have my calculator with me, but essentially I would take 922 minus 912, and then, let's see,
10 feet.
yes. And then divide that by, let's see here,
550.
let's see, 130.2. Because I'm getting about if you were to take it from one corner to the other, that's about 3,000 feet.
Sorry, slope, percentage of slope.
Right, yeah, so I'm telling you just how I did it. So I did the measurement from one corner to the other, that's about 3,000 feet, and then taking that 10 feet of elevation, that's okay, divided by 3,000 feet is about, let's see here, multiplied by 100, that's about 0.33% slope existing.
Would you then agree, based on this topography and slope, that the septic fields are higher than the points of generation the three buildings are set?
Let's see, at least if you were to not change anything on this site, I would say that the lower left one is in the highest point, and then the one on the lower right that's in the lower area. The existing topography around there is 915, 916.
And then, not seeing a table per se, but doing a count, is there 260 parking spaces on this property?
No, I think the approximate number is about 140. Code doesn't require us to provide a parking space for each person that visits the site. I can't speak to exactly what that is. I think the architect that we've worked with on this project, he helped develop the site plan itself. But I would say that it's about at least two people to a parking space thereabout.
So 140 is,
Mm-hmm.
and what is that improved surface for that parking?
That would be, let's see here, down in the lower right, we've got our symbol legend there, and that would be asphalt pavement.
Has there been any evaluation of the capacity for that area to a well to generate the water demand?
I don't think we were required to do anything just yet. I think that'd be something we would get to in the design portion of this project. We have done some analysis. We had some soil borings done for at least the septic area to determine what areas were suitable and were not. I believe essentially where we have the two areas shown, the primary and replacement areas for septic were where we found soil borings that were suitable for a septic area.
And then the combined footprint of the buildings on the property, have you come to a calculation?
Like on the area, if we were to add up the square footage,
Yes, of the three buildings.
let's see here, I can do it now. It's about 14,260 square feet.
Thank you. That concludes my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smolinski.
Yes, I'd like to follow up on some of the questions concerning your business experience. Have you performed a market study for the need for this type of business?
This is Anita Miller again. Not at this time. We've not performed a market study.
So then, how did you determine that there's a need for this in the area?
Well, just for our own personal need to be able to have larger classroom areas for the already educational classes that we're having on our farm. So that was one of the indications. But we have a lot of people who come through our farm every year, and just from the local people who come through, and even those from Chicagoland that come through, who are always ask the question of, is there a place like what we are proposing, what we are planning? And as you look in the vicinity, and I don't remember what the mile radius was that we looked at for places to have events, places to have weddings, places for reunions, barn dances, etc. There weren't too many within a close radius that could be as diverse as what we are proposing.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, is where would be the nearest comparable facility to yours?
It's okay.
Again,
Larry
you said-
Miller.
Thank you.
Hi. Our farm has really grown pretty substantially in terms of how many people are visiting, how much traffic, foot traffic we have on our property. It's grown in business. It's doubled every single year since we've been starting it. And so even currently now, we have a staff of 5 tour guides who just do tours all day long. That's all they do. And so tours come from morning to evening to come and get an educational tour for about an hour and a half. They get to see all the animals, get to hold all the animals, learn about all of them. Besides, again, as my wife had talked about, having the educational classes that are going on consistently. So because we are in the agritourism business that way, we have those kinds of activities all year round. Even Christmas time over the winter is one of our busiest times of the year, and we are running tours from early in the morning into well into the evening hours where people are still coming. So this has been in response to a large amount of people that are coming constantly. Our tour schedule is constantly filled up. Even today, we have groups coming, Girl Scout groups coming. Tomorrow there's a Girl Scout group coming today and a Girl Scout group coming tomorrow. There's school districts that are coming. So we have quite a bit of foot traffic that we're trying to provide. When we offer our classes like embryology classes, we had so many people trying to sign up that we just didn't have capacity for that. So this need to expand has been based upon a lot of those kinds of foot traffic already that has been doubling every single year since we've started.
Okay, well, I appreciate that description of what you hope it to be, but event reception business is different from agritourism business. And my specific question to you that you didn't answer in your response was, where is the nearest competitive type business, a event reception place near there? You know?
Could you do
I know that there are several
Again,
other,
your name.
Anita Miller, so sorry. I know that there are several other businesses in the area that have barns for weddings, but you say comparable. I don't think there is a comparable one because their venues are, to my knowledge, have smaller weddings, smaller events, and don't have the capacity that we could potentially have. One is in Hebron. I don't know its exact location, but I know it's off of 173. And then there is one that I don't know if it's in Illinois or Wisconsin, because when I'm driving out that way, I'm not sure where the border is, my apologies. But it's heading toward Walworth from the Alden Hebron area. And then I believe there is one south of Woodstock that is specifically for this. I don't know what their capacity is. I do know that the other two that I mentioned have smaller capacities of the amount of people that can come to celebrate whatever event they're having.
Yes, I know there's 2 of those similar type businesses in the Huntley area as well. And, they do well, but they're not busy every day of the week or have these
Correct.
types of receptions all that frequently. The other question line that I have is when you went through the approval standards for a conditional use permit, there's two other approval standards that you did not address. Number 9, that a conditional use is reasonably in the interest of the public welfare. And number 10, that adequate measures will be taken to provide protection of groundwater, recharge and groundwater flow. Could you address those two?
Mm-hmm. 1 second. So, okay, let's see here. So number 9,
Identify yourself again, I'm sorry.
Jenny Capel. Number 9, that the conditional use is reasonable in the interest of the public welfare. I think our answer, we did not include it in our original standards here, at least not that's in this documentation, but I would say, yes, it is in the interest of the public welfare. And 10, that adequate measures will be taken to provide protection to groundwater recharge and water quality. Yes, we've been talking closely with the health department about the septic fields. That was the biggest key part of finalizing this design and getting their approval, was making sure that where we put the septic fields, they agreed with that area. And then we also have a detention pond that we're planning to put in, and that would be for the idea of once you add all this pavement and impervious surface, that water would then drain to the pond.
Okay, you just answered yes to number 9. Could you expand on how you feel it's reasonably in the interest of public welfare?
May I answer that? Anita Miller. I know for a fact that there are several businesses within Hebron that have already had higher revenues due to the fact of the traffic that is already coming to our farm. The restaurants, the Von Bergens has had more traffic go to them. So when you talk about the public welfare, I think for the small businesses in our small community that sometimes have struggled and have even closed, there was a restaurant once in Hebron that closed not too long ago. A Subway that once was in Hebron has closed as well. That we're bringing more foot traffic, not to mention that with a new florist that opened in Hebron, if we're having such an event as a wedding, we could very potentially use that florist for the event, which would increase her business. There is also a catering company within Hebron, which could also be potentially used. We've not gone to speak with these owners yet, just because we didn't want to, do it before it was appropriate. But I think for the businesses in Hebron that this could be a boost for them. Already the ice cream shops, the places that have food, places that serve breakfast, and like I said, Von Bergens with their vegetable market, they've already seen increased sales. And I know from a fact from owners that have said, oh, we've had a lot of people come in that talked about being at your farm, or they're going there, or they're coming back from there. And we always try to, when people ask, and I get this asked a lot, is there a local place to buy vegetables? And I say Von Bergens. I also say Paddock's in Richmond as well. And is there a place to eat? I mention Crandall's quite often, and now it's Miss Bella's Sweets and Treats, and I also mentioned the dairy. Because moms coming in with their kids, groups coming in with these kids, these are questions that they ask, and I get asked that quite often. So I think for the community, and not to mention, is it possibly a place that the high school could now have a prom? Is it, we've done quite a few fundraisers with the athletic program at the high school. Every year at Farm Stroll, their food truck has been on our premises as a donation to the parents' athletic, I'm sorry, the words are escaping me, to give money to the high school for their athletics. We provide the food, they sell the food, they have a nice donation. Also, we have a very close working relationship with Pioneer Center, and know that they have quite often places that they're looking for to have activities for the special needs adults and the special needs minors that they service in our community. And due to our close working relationship, they would be more than welcome to hold the dance, have a bazaar, do some of the things that they already try to do in McHenry County.
Thank you for that explanation. I have no further questions.
Mr. Eldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to note for the record that in my capacity of Economic Development Director of the City of Harvard, I worked with the Millers a number of years ago on some projects they were then involved in. I have a couple of issues that I wanted to explore. I think this first one is, actually the first two really for the engineer. With the amount of impervious surface you're creating in the parking, I'm concerned with that much parking about contaminated runoff, de-icing materials in the winter, and things coming off vehicles in year-round. What, if anything, is being done to clean the water? It goes into a retention pond, but are you doing anything to protect, because this is a SARA high contamination probability area. What, if anything, are you doing to address that issue?
Well, I think that, again, I think would be something we address more closely once we do the design phase of this project, just because this is more of a schematic design of what they are envisioning. We haven't gotten into the specifics of what we would do. But usually, I mean, the intention, like I said, would be to push it all into this detention pond. And then, and it would try to avoid, you know, putting it especially into like a neighboring property or anything like that. That's not what we would want. That's kind of the intention of the pond, is to put anything
You're
there.
prohibited from causing additional runoff into other people's property.
Right, yes.
Okay. Then I frankly believe that the Miller's projection of the number of visitors they're likely to have is very optimistic. But if there were that many, that would be a very substantial increase in the traffic on Hebron Road. Has a traffic study either been undertaken or contemplated?
Not at this time. I think we estimated, or my manager checked that the IDOT ADT, assuming about 140 cars going into this parking lot, which is the capacity of the parking lot, this would be an increase from the current, it's about 250 average daily traffic. So yes, it would be an increase when there is a full event. I believe though in our conversations we've had, the number 260 was essentially set for designing the septic, you know, making sure we were designing for enough people, and that would not be the common daily occurrence that there would be 260 people every day, if even every week, every weekend, that they would have that large of an event. But they just wanted to be able to have the capacity to do so.
But they are predicting 90,000 visitors a year, which is quite a lot.
Anita Miller. I don't think that we are personally predicting 90,000 visitors a year. I think that, as you said, it would be quite optimistic to think that 240 people are going to come for an event every day. And I'm not sure that is ever going to happen. As Jenny had mentioned, the reason that it is that number is because of the septic and being able to, if it is a Saturday in July and somebody wants to get married, that we can accommodate that. But to say, as one of the board members earlier had mentioned, that, you know, the other event places in the area, although they are busy, and I know that they are busy due to having conversations, nobody has an event every single day. And so, I mean, it was put in there almost out of necessity for the county to be okay with our septic system. But it is most likely not going to happen. As you said, that would be very optimistic.
Okay, thank you. Now, some more general questions. How much, you own a significant amount of land adjacent to this property, is that correct?
If you look up at the corner in the top right, that is the land that we own. So there's 80 acres total.
Okay, and you're farming the rest of that land? Other than, there's a residence next door, is that your residence?
Yes.
And the rest of the 80 acres, is that being farmed presently?
No, because we have quite a bit of forest. I'm going to pass this to my husband, who knows more about this than I do.
Thank you.
We are running a grass-fed, Larry Miller, excuse me. We are running a grass-fed beef and lamb and goat pastured pig operation there, so we do practice husbandry on that farm. So most of that land is grazing except for the about 20 acres of forested wetland.
So you have about 20 acres that's forested, and the rest of it is grazing land?
Yes.
And you have no significant plantings of row crops?
No, we own an additional farm on Hebron Road as well that we grow food on. It's for hay production and organic vegetable production.
How many acres is that?
Another 80.
And how far away is that from this farm?
It's 4 miles down the road
In which direction?
toward Alden. It's,
So
yes.
4 miles west of?
Yes, just past the orchard, yes.
Okay. And what portion of that would you say is in hay and what portion is in vegetables?
About 6 acres of that is in vegetable production. The rest is in hay production.
Okay, and no significant amount of corn and beans, I gather?
No, not at this moment.
And do you contemplate that the farming that you're doing presently will pretty much continue as this goes forward?
Absolutely. This event center is a continuation out of already our agro-tourism business. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to have, we brought in a specialist in composting and things like that. We bring in specialists to have conferences and talks. Most of the events that are going to be there will be educational for the purpose of the agribusiness. You know, again, we're just citing what could happen if a wedding takes place on this property, but that's not really going to be the whole push of it. It's going to be the classes and events that are surrounding our farm.
Roughly what size have the classes and events you've had up to now been?
In our embryology class, we had 150 children in that class.
And for how long a period of time?
Now I'm going to pass that down.
Anita Miller, we're a good team. Like he said, we had 150 students enroll. It was a 4-week class. We had to break those classes up to about 10 to 12 students per class because our current space does not accommodate 150 students.
What would be the, going forward, how many students would you think would be efficient to have in a class?
Well, we currently on staff have a teacher who just graduated last December with her education degree. So speaking with her and talking about how many students she would sufficiently want to have, because we want, as we always have wanted, a personal hands-on experience. So we don't want it to be too large that there's a child that feels left behind. So I think after talking with her that with a helper, she would be comfortable with 20 to 25 students per class. If she did not have a helper, which we have quite a sufficient staff to help with things, so I would see that it could be, 20 to 25 students. But on top of that, we also had a recent bunny class, a bunny care class. We have a lot of people who come, we have bunnies on our farm, who are very interested in knowing how do I care for this animal, what are the needs of this animal, and that too was a very popular class. And if I remember correctly, we had about 85 students that signed up for that. It might have been more, my numbers are off. So again, we had to limit class size due to the event, due to the space that we have.
And in terms of these classes, you said it was the embryology was a 4-week class. How long was a single class?
Each class was about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, depending on the age of the kids. 6-year-olds don't sit there as long as like a 12-year-old would. So it did depend on the age of the
And
children.
every
coming.
day, every weekday, or?
We had classes running, the embryology classes, which went from.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
one child, how often would he be there in the 4 weeks?
Once a week.
So it's 4 1 to 1.5 hour classes over the course of 4 weeks.
Right.
Correct.
And this was for basically first graders?
No, the class we had, it was geared for children ages 4 to 9, the younger grammar ages, but we have quite a few homeschooling co-ops that come to our farm regularly, so the teacher was able to adjust the class to go for children as old as 12, 15 years old. So we had a wide age span of children that came for the embryology class.
What would you say is the average age?
I would say the average is, I would say 8, because I think 7 to 10 was the average range of the majority of the children that came.
And would you be holding this in the 4,800 square foot building that you're describing here?
Small.
That is correct. That building, the hopes is that it would be an area where we could have classes at.
Okay.
Because there would be bathrooms.
You
and-
think that's the primary classroom building?
Yes, most definitely.
Now, the King Barn, is the 5,600 square feet including the 2 bump outs, or is it the original barn, 5,600 feet?
I believe the original barn was 5,600 feet.
So it'd be 7,000, 8,000 feet when you add the bump outs to it? Is that, I mean, I'm not asking for accuracy, I just want a general idea.
I will pass
I
that.
believe the bump outs include
Yeah, Jenny Capel, yeah, I think what we meant to say
Sorry.
was, no, that's okay. Is that, what the number that's shown there is the total with the bump outs. That is the total square footage. So the barn, the original barn was smaller than the 5,600 square feet.
Okay. That just wasn't clear, at least to me, from the previous testimony. I think that's everything I have at this time. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. So now, you said that you were farming crops on this property. I'll direct this to Mr. That you were farming crops on this farming property, this property that you own, before you went into agritourism. Is that correct?
No, Larry Miller again. When we bought the property, it was not a working farm, and we were not farmers. So we were coming into this to grow ourselves, to become more in touch with our the food we were growing. So we went on a large educational journey ourselves into all of that, which led us to add this into our other businesses and portfolio that we have. So when we bought the farm, it was not a working farm, but other farmers in the area were renting out the tillable lands for themselves.
Okay, so you've basically been in agritourism since you owned the property, is that right?
Well, the first initial couple of years were just us learning and
Yeah.
growing, and yeah, it developed out of that.
Okay. Now, getting down to, you may want to pass the microphone, I don't know. You can actually take it out of here too, and it's easier to pass.
Oh.
Let's say, for instance, that this project is approved here, it's approved at the county board level, and you're ready to go. How long will it take to finish it, and ready to open the doors and have a wedding? Just an estimate, it doesn't have to be exact.
Sure, I think, yeah, Jenny Capel, I think we're thinking of, it would be a few years before the first wedding is hosted, but I believe the intention would be, once we have approval here, we would then go into the design phase and start working on the specifics, getting approval
Of
for
course.
everything from.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the way
exactly.
you have to do it.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so I'm thinking, how long is it gonna take to put the barn back together and, so on and so forth. So, okay. So you're saying at least a couple of years before this would be an up and running venue?
Yeah.
Okay. Now how long have you owned this property? Either Mrs. Miller or Mr. Miller?
Anita Miller, we purchased it in July of 2015.
So you've had it for quite a while?
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see. Now, getting down to the actual opening of this venue, would you prepare food there, or would you have a food service come in?
It could potentially be both. It is our desire to have a commercial kitchen put into this property, not only for our own use or for caterers' use, but for, I know many cottage food people in McHenry County who are always looking for a commercial kitchen to rent in order to stay within the cottage food guidelines or to even grow their business. So that is a desire. I am a cottage food licensed person. Our store is licensed with the health department to sell the things that we raise on our farm, and I am a home baker, so I sell that in our farm store as well.
So getting back to that, you would start out with a catering service, but then maybe work into preparing food there and serving it, is that right?
Quite possibly, depending on how
Okay.
well it goes.
Okay. Have you spoken to any neighbors about these plans that you have?
We spoke to neighbors after we had our township meeting last year. We felt that it was premature to bring it up until we had approvals from the surrounding communities, because we just didn't want to put the cart before the horse. So we did ask them to have a meeting with us last year to come discuss this with us.
Okay. What was the response from them?
It was not positive for the most part. I was a little shocked by that. But I mean, again, I want to be a good neighbor. And again, this is my property. I'm not wanting to have, drunk people walking around at midnight. My children will sleep in the house that is adjacent to this place, which is closer than any house of the neighbors at all. Again, we are more than willing to talk about sound barriers, but on that note, Hoops, which is a bar restaurant in Hebron, you can hear the music that they play all summer long, practically every single night. So I can't imagine that what we are going to possibly do on a weekend would be any more than what Hoops is already doing. Again, we talked about, well, we could put time restraints on an event. I mean,
Yes, I know, there's really nothing that we can do about Hoops here, but we can
Sure,
put some
yes.
conditions on
Sure.
your request
And we are more than willing
regarding
to do that.
sound and possibly not allowing outdoor music
Mhm.
at a certain level, whatever, or
Sure,
certain hours, as you mentioned. Okay.
that's fine.
Let's see, I think that is about all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Schnabel.
Yes, good afternoon. Just to review quickly, the old barn that you're moving, has that been accomplished already, or is that in demo mode?
The barn has been taken down and is on our property at present.
Ready to be erected upon approval, et cetera, okay. I think my question on the food and drink was answered when you told me about your cottage kitchen cooking. Are you planning to do all this in one phase? You can move the barn and then do new construction a year later? What are your thoughts?
Well, that will probably be, a conversation we have with the construction crew that we work closely with, as my wife had stated earlier, and Larry Miller. We own a properties company, so we have our own construction crew that we work with exclusively, and all of those things, like the Alden Schoolhouse renovation, where we did that and restored it, kept all of its old flooring and bell tower and things like that intact. So this construction crew has already tagged it and moved it, and because they took it down, they know how to put it back up.
Okay, my next question is, what do you think the overall construction value of this project would eventually end up being approximately in your mind?
I'm not exactly sure of that yet, but my guess would be about 1.5 million.
And my last question for right now, when your engineers do this layout plan, what kind of discussions have you had with the county regarding the impervious surface? And my actual question is, of the 6.57 acre that this is laid out on, when you include the parking lot and the buildings, can you give me a percentage of the impervious surface area as a percentage of that lot?
Let's see, this is Jenny Campbell. I don't have the exact number in front of me on these plans, but I do know that we would be, cognizant of any, many counties have limits on how much percentage you can have. It would be within those limits. And like I said, I don't have the exact number, but it would be within code, within guidelines of whatever McHenry County would like us to do.
And that's all I have for the moment. Thank you, Mr. Jers.
Being here at the end, I don't even know if this works. I'm loud enough. Being here at the end of the table, all of my questions have already been raised with my fellow board members here. I can't come up with any new ones. You guys have hit them all, so I can scratch off the questions I was going to ask. You did it for me. Thank you. I've seen your work. The Alden School. My sign was on it when you guys bought it, so I'm very familiar with that building. I was by it recently. You've done a good job on that. You got a track record established in the neighborhood, so take care of what you own. I've got relatives on your road about a stone's throw from where you live. You know Ridgecrest Farms?
Mhm.
The Spinola's boys, they're my cousins. Okay, I talked to them about this previously.
Do you have any questions?
Huh?
Do you have any questions for them?
Questions? Traffic. He did address the cars per day. When you have an evening event, do you plan on having anybody at the gate, like a rent-a-cop or somebody getting cars in and out of that lot? Some type of, for a large event, are they on their own getting in and out, or are you gonna have some people with reflective vests?
Larry Miller, we have a very large staff already. I'm sure that we can accommodate whatever, and if we needed to hire
So if
somebody
there's
to do
a-
that, we certainly would.
A big inflow in a short time and a big outflow in a short time.
We've already handled things like that with, like, being the largest farm of Farm Stroll, and our farm set the record for McHenry County Farm Stroll for the most people that attended, and we've always been able to accommodate all of that.
Well, I know like Edwards out in Boone County, they got a couple of rent-a-cops there. like,
Sure.
All weekend, getting cars in and out. So during the week, it's nothing. So
We certainly could.
you thought.
Would, sure.
All right, I'm done.
We have some questions. You talked about other businesses that you have in your business background. I would like to know what other commercial businesses you have in McHenry County and where they are located.
First is our IT company. We have an IT recycling company that resides in Alden. So besides owning several houses in Alden and the other farm that we spoke of, which is in Alden, we own the Alden Schoolhouse, and that was a 3-acre lot that we just finished construction last year on.
And you do
putting up a
IT
warehouse there. Pardon?
Did you say you do IT?
IT recycling. Yes, we go into banks, hospitals, school districts, pull out all their
And how
old
many
systems.
employees do you have there?
There's 13 employees that work in that company.
Okay, what other type of business centers?
Besides that, we have the properties company, so that's Prodish Processing. The Prodish Properties then owns all of that. It owns the farms, it owns multiple rental houses in Harvard as well, and it also owns a home for disabled adults in McHenry for the Pioneer Center.
So you have some residential properties, you have an IT company in Alden for recycling with 13 employees.
We have commercial properties then with the schoolhouse that was converted into an apartment building and the warehouse, and we have agricultural property as well. So that kind of
But is-
envelops everything.
But is it part of a large commercial venture? Like, this is a huge commercial venture.
Correct.
You have the business in, I mean, you have a hay field, west of here on Hebron Road. And you have residential properties that you fix up and rent out. But as far as commercial venture, you have the IT recycling with 13 employees in Alden, and that's it?
Well, it's a very large company that generates quite a bit. So,
Is that your major source of income?
yes, but the farm is now rivaling it. So yes, but they are
Do
multi-million
you charge all these
dollar-
people that come to your farm?
Pardon?
Do you charge all these people
Yes.
that come to your farm?
Yes.
Like Farm
Ten.
Stroll, where they charged?
Farm Stroll is a different event that was for free.
That's a Farm Bureau sponsored
Right.
event that goes to all,
But
lots of farms in McHenry
Right, our
County, not
educational
just
tours
yours.
are $10 a piece.
Okay. Where do these people come from that come to your classes and that sort of thing?
Again,
Are they
we-
from Hebron? Are any
Oh,
from Hebron?
From Hebron and from all over. We actually have people traveling in from quite large distances to come.
Like how far?
Hours away. We are on,
What percent of your people come from McHenry County and what percent come from outside McHenry County to your
can I
farm?
answer that? I'll let my wife answer that question.
And you're kind of vague. I'd like to get more specific.
Hi,
on
I'm Nina
things.
Miller. I'm not sure that I can give you an exact percent because we don't collect addresses of every person
Well,
that
you
comes.
can be pretty
Um,
close as to who's in the county and who's out, I would
Right,
think.
I would say that it's probably 50-50 for those within the county and those without the county. As my husband started to say, we have a large group of people from Chicagoland that come in quite often, truthfully, COVID sort of boosted what we were already doing to go to private farm tours during the COVID time so that people could come, be outside
From outside the county?
from outside the county and within the county. I would say that
So
our
how come you aren't doing this as agritourism then? I mean, you could ask for agritourism, but you didn't. You asked for something completely different from agritourism, and yet you're talking like you're incorporating this as agritourism. But this is something totally different.
I believe the answer to that question is because we wanted to be able to have diversity and to do just agritourism would not allow us to be licensed to have larger events like a wedding or a dance or larger events like that. So, but on the opposite end, having this special use permit, we can still do the agritourism, which I would hope is still going to be a large part of what we do.
You were asked by another board member about what other facilities are around, and you weren't sure where they were, and yet later you said that you would talk to the other facilities, and you said how busy they were. How can you talk to them and not know where they are?
I did not specifically talk to those facilities. I was referring to talking to the business owners within Hebron. The reason I know that
So
those...
you have not talked to any other facility rental people?
No, but who I
Like
have...
Royal Oak that's adjacent to your farm down the road, you said it's adjacent to the apple orchard, and they do some weddings there as part of agritourism, you didn't talk to them? to
I
see-
did not know the Royal Oak did weddings.
All right. That they can do a reception or something in a building?
I have no knowledge that they
Uh,
did things like that.
So you did not talk to them?
No.
Okay, and theirs is part of agriculture, agritourism?
Yeah, I did not know that.
Okay. Okay.
So back to your original question, this special use permit allows us to do all of the above, where just the agritourism does not allow us to have events.
So, in a conditional use permit, it's for a specific use and a specific site. And this is a pretty intense use, and I'm wondering, why did you put this smack dab between two large dairy facilities on a country road in a very rural part of the county? Why not on a major highway? Why not, near a town? You can have a huge negative impact on your neighbors. Why did you decide to put such an intense use right here?
Well, first off, I own this property, and I don't own a property that is what you just described. So I would have to go out and find the property and purchase that property, which is not in our purview to do at this point. We're not interested in doing that. Secondly, you're right, it is on an agricultural road, but that agricultural road during certain seasons has quite a bit of traffic when the apple orchard opens, and there is a lot of traffic that goes down Hebron Road. I know this because our store traffic increases and people say, oh, we were at the orchard, we didn't know you were here, we saw your sign. Also, being south of Lake Geneva, there are many people that drive through Hebron that love the area, love the beauty of it, and our land to look out beyond is very beautiful, very picturesque. It's forest when the trees change in the fall and when they're budding in the spring. It's just a very pretty area to be. So we just figured that that was a good place to put it. We were not intending to have any negative event.
Did you tell your neighbors that are farmers that you were going to have up to 260 people a day on site?
Well, I spoke before that we did not have a meeting with the neighbors until after the township meeting because we didn't want to put the cart before the horse and have a conversation about something that may or may not happen.
Well, this is where it happens. I
But
mean,
we had that
a
meeting
good neighbor
before.
would tell them what you plan on doing.
We did,
Once
we
it's
did.
approved, then they can't do anything about it.
Right, we did have that meeting right after the township back in October, it was. So we did ask if they would come and have a conversation with us.
Did you see their letter of objection?
I saw it at 12:10 when it was emailed to me.
What do you have to say about their objection?
Obviously, I don't want to be a bad neighbor, and I am more than willing to work on any concerns there might be, but to just point out, my family lives at this property. I have children growing up at this property, and I would make decisions as a parent prior to a business owner to do what is in the best interest of my family. But I think some of the concerns.
Well, it's kind of like your business versus their business, because this is a business that you're talking about.
I don't foresee how us doing this is going to interrupt any of the business that they do. And I'm not sure that I saw that in the letter. And as Mr. Eldridge had said earlier, it would be extremely optimistic to think that we would have that amount of people on the farm or at this event center every single day. And although we had to put it in there so that we could get past the septic issue, that is not my intent or our plan to have huge events every single day. It was almost forced upon us to have it worded that way to be able to have one event once a month because of the septic issues that were brought up.
Well, I mean, it's your narrative. You said that it could be available 365 days a year. And, you're asking for weddings, receptions, corporate events, meetings, conferences, dances, and the like. There's nothing about agricultural classes and that's your narrative that you gave with your petition. There was nothing in your narrative that said anything about agriculture. Nothing. And now you get this letter of objection, and all of a sudden now you're telling us all these agricultural things. I have to say that I'm a little leery about, the intent here. And, living next to a dairy farm, I'm sure you've seen like manure being spread. They have real restrictions, and when they have to spread manure, they have to spread manure. And you've got smells and odors and a lot of farm vehicles that could really be a conflict when you have a lot of traffic flying by. It could be a real danger to those farm implements.
Well, on that sense, though, it's not like they're every single day spreading manure. They're not every day on the road with their farm tractors. I mean, I live there, I see what happens. I realize that there are times and seasons, and again, when we had the meeting with the neighbors, we said, you know, please talk to us, and we initially were not met well. There was no understanding of us trying to grow our business as well. You are correct to say that that's what the petition states. The petition doesn't necessarily state every single thing that we had intended, because the petition was put in to fulfill the requirements for the special use permit. So being leery, I apologize for that. That was not the intent.
Mr. Eldridge, you had another question?
Yes, for the engineer, I think. Am I correct that this is not really a site plan, it's a concept plan, and that the engineering, the site engineering has not yet been done?
Jenny Capel, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so from this point, should this be approved, civil engineering would have to be undertaken, architectural design and so forth, and approved by the building department of the county, and it would have to be in conformance with the stormwater ordinance and the building codes and so forth. Do you expect any very substantial grading of the site?
No, I think the biggest point of the grading would just be around the detention pond in the back, in order to make it deep enough for however amount of water we will need to detain.
Yeah, we've already heard that the site is sloping. From my looking at it, it looks like it slopes primarily from the west to the east. Is that generally correct?
Yeah, I would say southwest corner to the northeast.
Okay, so southwest to northeast is the slope, and a total of 10, 12 feet?
Yes.
So a significant but fairly modest sloping. It does not slope toward, as you described it, it slopes toward other property that the Millers own, not toward neighbors' property. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do any members of the public have questions for the petitioner based on their testimony? If so, I would ask you to come up to the microphone and identify yourself. You might have to turn it on, pull it.
I can.
towards- It is on? Okay, it's on.
I'm Katie
You can turn
Vanderstappen.
it up, so,
Sorry.
there you go.
Hi. I'm Katie Vanderstappen. We are adjacent to the Millers on the eastern side of Hebron Road. We are dairy farmers as well. And I want to know, like, of the original barn that you guys took down, that's been untreated wood, that's been in the environment, but how much is salvageable, do you think?
I would say it's hard to know that at this time, but talking with our builder, he was very positive about sending it to a mill to have wood planed in order to be able to save as much as possible.
Right, to keep, like, the authenticity of it?
It is our desire to keep the authenticity of it.
Another question, if you guys do construct this building proposed, where will that, so it's gonna take up most of that front pasture, correct?
Just the corner.
Where will the animals that are there now, the chickens, the cows, the calves, will there be enough room on the rest of your land to properly raise them?
Yes, because on the north part of our property, we have 23 acres of pasture land as well, along with 7 other acres that go toward the north, along with the east side of our property. I don't remember the acreage of that. So, plus the property that we just bought down the street is not only just for hay fields, but we are putting fencing in right now as we speak for pasture land.
And then final question, you know, you did say like people come from Lake Geneva all over to see the beauty of our land. Why would you want to put a building there and destroy that beauty? Like, it is gorgeous. I love running by your farm. I do. And I see your cows and calves and chickens. And that's here, and like, I'm gonna cry. And that's what we're part of. Like, why would you want to destroy that with an asphalt parking lot and a barn and an events facility? Like, that is here, and that's us to the core. It is. That's for me.
Well, I would say for our 80 acres that we have, to have just a little over 6 acres turned into something that we think would be beneficial for the whole community of Hebron, where you would still see our forest land, it does not make that big of an impact on the pasture land that we have.
Once you put that asphalt down, you ruin that land. All the nutrients, everything is gone permanently.
Duly noted. But it was not our idea to do the asphalt. It was staying within the confines of what the county would deem us that we need to do.
Is it
my
necessary to
understanding.
have asphalt? Because like Farm Bergens, I mean, they host thousands of people every summer, and they do not have an asphalt parking lot. They just have the gravel roads with grass in between it. Same with Bluestem, which is another event facility on 173, approximately 5 miles east of us.
It was my understanding that that was what the county required. If I can look back into that, but that was my
Is that true,
understanding.
Anna, that you would require asphalt?
Kurt Smith, Senior Planner. It's my understanding that a parking facility of this size would be required to be asphalt and striped.
Probably because it's not agriculture, tourism, because it's an event facility?
I don't know that it's triggered because of the type of use, but rather the number of parking spaces that are required.
Okay.
That's it, thank you.
Anybody else in the public want to
Comment
ask
on
a
that.
question regarding testimony?
May I comment on that?
Sure.
Okay. Just to note that this saving of this historic barn is the focal point of everything that we're doing. And I think that that is, in essence, the truest thing that we could do in terms of prolonging and keeping the farming traditions alive. That was our whole entire goal. Even some of the reasons why we spanned out into other event spaces was so that we weren't trying to fit it all into this historic barn, but could keep the integrity of that barn and keep the historic nature of that barn, rather than filling it with bathrooms and kitchens and things like that. We tried to put those into the auxiliary units to preserve that barn in its place.
I drive down that road quite a bit, and that pile of lumber in the pasture out there, is that what the barn is? Is that lumber in the pasture
Yes.
that's there now?
Yes.
And how long has it been there?
Well, we've been at this for a couple of years.
So it's been laying there in the pasture a couple of years?
Well, it
Was
was-
the barn was taken down a couple of years ago, or how long ago?
Yes, yes, but it was sitting outside for 70 years prior to that.
Sure. But that
It's
is,
not weathered any more
that's the
than it would have
barnwood
been.
that you plan to use, the barnwood that's in the
Correct.
pasture currently?
Correct, yes. But again, it's, even if it was sitting outside, it'd still be getting weathered over the course of those couple of years.
6.7 acres equals 8%.
Okay, any other questions?
While you're waiting for additional questions, may I make a correction to a statement that I made?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Ms. Hanlon has informed me that there is not a requirement for paving. Okay. That's good.
Okay, so it could be gravel?
Correct. Okay.
May I ask a further question?
Yes, certainly, Mr.
Would you be open to a condition that prohibited you from paving anything except the handicap spaces? The handicap spaces, I believe, do have to be paved, so that you'd have to use gravel or some other non-paved medium for the parking.
I mean, I think the advantage of the asphalt is I think it would make it easier to convey water wherever they need it to go. And, you know, with gravel, you could potentially run into, you know, cases where it may not stay within the confines of where you first placed it. Those would be my concerns, but that's not necessarily their position on whether they would want pavement or not. I would personally recommend asphalt if I had a choice.
I understand that, however, for environmental reasons, we have on multiple occasions prohibited asphalt for venues in rural areas.
Noted.
Ms. Gardner has another question.
For the rest of your businesses on that property, how much parking do you have and what type of parking is it?
We have a large driveway and a fairly modest parking area right now, which is part of our issue of what we need to correct.
So you have, is it gravel?
No, it's paved.
It's paved, okay. But you were saying that you have all these people coming all the time, and where do they park then?
Sometimes on the road, sometimes they're just coming, trying to come in and out. So it varies depending on the size of the day. On an event like Farm Stroll, they're parked all the way down the road. We have a large frontage area, obviously, and so they can park all along there, which is part of the issue for us, is why we need parking.
Okay, so you would consider doing gravel parking or some other type of surface other than a paved surface?
In the end of the day, I'd do whatever you needed me to do. If that's what you said, that's what I would do.
Just want to know if it was a deal breaker, that's all.
No, it would certainly be my preference. And I think that just from an architectural standpoint, you'd be running into some issues of trying to make it where it was a melded, you know, some was paved and some wasn't, you know, I don't know. But I would certainly be open to whatever we needed to do.
Okay, thank you.
Are you familiar with the strategic aquifer recharge area in McHenry County? The engineer is not.
What are you talking about specifically on this
The
site?
strategic aquifer recharge area for the county.
Not strategic, sensitive.
Sensitive aquifer recharge area. Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with the map that was given to us that talks about it on this specific site.
Okay, and you're familiar with what it is?
This specific site,
No, what that signifies.
is it the, how much water, the water table level, I believe, how close it is to the surface or how deep it is?
And how it's more than that. It's how easily it can be contaminated and how quickly I thought as an engineer you would maybe be familiar with this in our county and how easily the things percolate through the soil and can get into the aquifer.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I just wondered, you know, doesn't sound like you're that familiar with our strategic aquifer recharges areas in the county. Are you from McHenry County?
No, I am not.
Where is your office?
Naperville, Illinois.
Okay, at this time, yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, just back to the narrative. In the narrative that you provided, the last, near the bottom question or statement, you say that there's 20,000, greater than 20,000 square feet of impervious surface.
Yes.
And that, of that, by the site plan, doing the totals of the three buildings, including the bump out, that comes off to about 14,260. So even removing the parking, you still have impervious surface of the patio, which is uncalculated, and the impervious surface of the porte cochere, which is uncalculated. Do you agree with
Yes, I think, yeah, yep.
So it's quite possible that even if the parking was removed, you would still hit at 20,000 square feet, looking at the scale of those two features.
Yes, I would agree that that's possible.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll, and no other questions, right? Okay, we'll take testimony from the staff on summarizing your report.
Okay. First, I'm going to go over the site plan. The site plan that is before you today, I'm going to acknowledge that it was not the one that was in the printed packet or the one that was online. There are two specific changes. One has to do with the septic in your printed or your online version. The septic had been to the east of the parking area. They needed to accommodate additional septic field, so this site plan is adding it to the west as well, so you have two septic field areas. The other thing to note is that for the Hebron Township Road Commissioner, the driveways have been widened. In your original plan, they were 24 feet wide, and this plan, these driveways will be wide. I will also note that for the testimonies that we've heard today, there are additional uses that are not covered through a reception facility. I will remind the board that the requested aid is for the reception facility and that you should be considering the reception facility. The things that I've heard today that are not part of the reception facility per se, the classes that are being held would be classified as agritourism limited, which would require a separate site plan review or staff class review committee. And if you do intend to pursue the commercial kitchen, that is food processing, and that would require a separate conditional use permit for that. So just want to advise you that you do need to separate those from your consideration today. Property is zoned agricultural with agricultural uses surrounding it. As noted, it is in a sensitive aquifer recharge area that does have special considerations for how much impervious area that we can have in the area. The conditional, or excuse me, the comprehensive plan does not speak directly to reception facilities. So you need to consider both the environmental aspects that are covered in the comprehensive plan against the commercial nature of those policies that are associated with this. We do not have a specific recommendation to give to you. This is a conditional use permit. We need to accept all testimony and weigh each of these factors individually.
Does anyone have any questions for Anna regarding the report? Yes, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chairman. The staff report cites that the facility is inconsistent with this designation. Is there a value in how inconsistent it is inconsistent?
So refresh my memory, which standard was I referring to?
You have a citation 2030 comprehensive plan future land use map. The 2030 future land use map designates this property as agricultural,
Right.
allowing this property to provide a reception facility is inconsistent with this designation. That's your words. I'm just looking for
Yeah,
a
I
value.
understand. Okay. Just want to put the right context together there. So, okay. So the future land use map does show this as agricultural. The reception facility, the way I envision reception facilities is more of a commercial nature. That's my indication that it's inconsistent with an agricultural designation.
Not to be too glib, it is more inconsistent than apples and oranges, or how inconsistent would it be?
I think that that's something that the board needs to evaluate as to how inconsistent it is.
So whether it's detrimental inconsistent, or whether it's not incompatible inconsistent.
I would place it closer to an incompatible.
Also in that same staff report, there's a reference to a detailed landscape plan that was requested at the staff plan review of March 1st. Has such been provided?
That will be provided at the time of permitting.
The health department submitted a report and it was summarized to say, based on the revised estimated sizing information and the depicted area on the site plan for possible septic replacement area still appears inadequate for a conventional septic and replacement area. Has that been addressed, or is
So
that?
yes, that comment was based on the site plan that is in your online packet that was given to the staff plat review committee. After the staff plat review committee, the plan that you have before you today, the one that's up on the screen and the printed one before you, that does address their concerns, and they did sign off on that plan.
Silver Forest is a septic field with a combined area of 24,000 square feet.
Correct.
Has any comments been received from Hebron?
No.
That concludes my questions.
Mr. Elton, do you have a question?
Yes, this looks like it's right on the edge of whether it's within Hebron's planning area or not. Can you confirm whether it is or isn't?
I don't recall, well, I can answer that in just 1 second here. So it is within the village of Hebron's planned area, and they have designated it as a low-density residential area.
And have they considered this proposal? They received notice?
They received notice, whether they
And
chose
they
to
have
respond.
made no comment?
They have made no comment.
And what about Hebron Township?
The road commissioner has responded, and his comments had to do with driveways. I have not received any comments from the township supervisor's office.
Do you know whether the township acted in any fashion?
I do not know.
Other than the objection letter we received from two neighbors, have there been any other objections?
I have not heard of any.
May I address a
Sure.
question? Are you aware of whether the township objected to or supported your petition?
Anita Miller here. Last fall, when we had the township meeting, I believe that they voted to send the proposal on to McHenry County, and they were very positive in that meeting about this happening.
Did they formally support it, or are you unaware of how they acted?
I thought they sent a letter to the county saying that they approved.
The staff tells me they did not receive, you did not receive it?
I'm not aware of one, no.
I could be mistaken, but I was pretty sure that I was told that that had happened. I don't have my laptop in front of me to try to pull up any emails.
Well, it would have been helpful if we had
Yeah,
that
yeah.
information specifically.
And did they see the narrative that you submitted?
No, they did. We had the meeting there last fall. They saw everything that you have in front of you,
And we-
outside of what was changed.
And all of those things that we brought up today, again, Larry Miller, they were all discussed at those meetings as well. So we have been true to those statements from the very beginning.
Staff has no letter.
I'm not aware of one.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Gardner.
During the initial application, was there any mention of requesting agritourism rather than CUP?
Today is the first time that I'm aware of that we are discussing the agritourism aspects of this.
I mean, just given the fact that there are other agritourism sites in the county that do have wedding venues. I thought
Right.
maybe that would come up at application time.
I was not part of the initial applications came in right
Okay.
before I started working here, so I can't say what discussions occurred prior to my arrival here. I do not recall any discussions during staff plat, review committees. We had, I believe it was 2 meetings. And I do not recall this being brought up.
Okay, can I ask the petitioner a question? It's true that the other businesses on this property are agritourism businesses, is that correct?
Anita Miller, yes, that is correct.
Okay, and you were never, it was never mentioned during your application process that this could be agritourism? Part of agritourism?
I think we've had conversations with the architect, with the engineers, and again, some of these things have evolved over the last few years. We've been at this for a couple of years now, so if that was an oversight as to when we originally put this in, which I believe was quite some time ago, it was not intentional. Our agritourism business has grown in the past couple of years.
I'm just saying that this could be part of your
Yes,
agritourism business.
most-
It
yes.
seems to me that it would be a natural part of it, so I'm
Yes.
just wondering why this came in as a separate, conditional use rather than part of the agritourism.
I don't have an answer for that, except for the original thing was written a long time ago, and it has evolved.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
If I may
Anna,
address, my apologies.
And I have a question. So I want to clarify that your comments that you said, that some things were spoken of in this hearing, but what we need to consider is the conditional use request for a reception facility.
Correct.
May I address something? I would like to suggest to the petitioner that they might wish to request a continuance to explore whether agritourism plus temporary use permits or some mixture of those might better serve them than this petition, particularly since testimony from staff indicates that if you're going to do what you say you're going to do, you're going to need 2 more conditional use permits, and that would also give you time to get us approval, if there is such, from Hebron Township. That, of course, is up to you.
That's perfect. Hi, Larry Miller. That's sounds very good. I think we are coming around in some circles here that we need to kind of address and so I think I'm not exactly sure who gives me the answer to that though. Where do I get that from?
By requesting a continuance, you would have some time to have further discussions with staff. And I think that's very likely if you request a continuance, this board will give it to you.
Okay.
But
Yes, I would
But I
request.
can't ask you.
I would request the continuance then to meet with the staff to discuss these issues.
So you're asking for a continuance of this hearing for a possible amendment and to discuss with staff?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Do we have the calendar?
Way down here.
Kurt's hiding it.
Yes.
Kurt's going to decide the date?
No, he was just doodling on it, that's all.
Anna, maybe you know maybe what dates are available to us for this room?
Okay.
It
So,
might need some more time because it sounds like, discussing a possible amendment. and-
right. Okay. So, with your permission, I'm going to have a
Yes,
conversation
please.
with the applicants here. Okay.
My apologies.
No problem with that, I understand. Okay, so you're indicating that you'd like to have a continuance so that we can discuss it further possible amendments to your site plan and to your application. Okay. We can certainly have the conversations and come back to this board and say this is where we're at with our conversations. We can make an assumption, I think, that an absolute minimum, you'd be looking at potentially adding the agritourism component to this, is what I did here today. Whether you want to add the commercial kitchen to this, you may or may not want to pursue that at this time. That's totally up to you. Okay. Where I'm getting at here is that if it's going to be any substantial changes, that this may need to go back to staff plat review committee, which we'd be looking at doing a staff plat in July at this point, earliest. Okay, then getting it back to this board. So at the absolute earliest, getting it back to this board, I would say we'd be looking end of July, beginning to August. If you want to pursue changing it to agritourism combined. If all you want to do is say, yes, let's discuss this, then we can come back in a couple of weeks. But if you want to make a commitment to a change or a potential change, then I'd be saying looking at the end of August or mid-August.
So what is your preference?
Maybe have a minute?
Certainly. Oh, yeah, you want to just take like a 5-minute break and you can discuss it?
Please.
Yeah, we'll do that.
May
Yeah.
I make a comment?
Please.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would, at least this is my personal position, I would strongly urge you to do away with asphalt paving wherever you can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, take your 5-minute break and then you come back and tell us what you want.
Okay.
And I'm going to take a break.
Time for a brisk walk to the end.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. The petitioner, so you had a break. What is your pleasure? How would you like to?
I think we'd like to ask for a continuance and have talk about adding that agritourism to the conditional use.
So we're talking about an August date?
Probably, yes.
So, Mr. Jers, since you started on this petition, you will have to hear the end of it as well. So
I'll be there.
We need a date when everybody would be available. So I'm looking at Thursdays in August that the petitioner would be available. I'm not here on the 24th or the 31st.
I might not be
Yeah,
here.
I leave on the 11th and get back on the 21st, I think.
Surely on the
Well, that
17th.
kind of kills the whole month there, except for the beginning.
I'd like to propose the first week after Labor Day.
September 7th? Does that work
That's
for
fine with
everybody?
me.
Okay.
It's fine for me.
It's a few more months, right?
Exactly.
So we're doing
Thursday the
it.
7th.
It's okay. We'll do it right.
So, so at this point, we will continue this hearing to September 7th at 1:30 in this room. Okay,
Thank you.
this time the meeting is closed.
Thank you so much.
Woodstock, 1:30. Yeah.
That's right.
Don't you love all this digital stuff and tell you where to be?
No, I don't, that's what I'm
Of course, thank you for coming too. It was very nice to meet you. Yeah, right, yeah.
No demand, no hearing. April the last 29th. That's April AC Mercado.
Well, that's
This month.
That's when my grandson was due. On the 29th of June. So 29th of June, I will put it down.
We'll try to